to the love that has laid hold of me. I'm holding on to the love that has laid.
Hey, good morning once again, FCF. We are now coming to the close. This is our 8th message dealing with this notion that God gives us an analogy of running a race to this developmental journey that He wants us to take with Himself. And today I want to turn to the book of 2 Timothy. And here's what's interesting about 2 Timothy. We've looked at a lot of the letters that the Spirit of God used to bring to us through the Apostle Paul. And when you come to 2 Timothy, particularly chapter 4, where I'm going to take you today, it is the last writing of the Apostle Paul. We know from history that he was martyred by Nero right after this particular book was written. So this is the last writing, and he knew that he was about to be martyred by Nero when he wrote what he wrote. So let me read to you from 2 Timothy, as Paul once again for his last time talks about this race that he has now been running for about 32 years. From the time of Paul's conversion, Paul was converted around 35 AD, the best that we can tell, and he's been following Jesus now for about 32 years, and now his race is about to come to an end. 2 Timothy chapter 4, beginning in verse 6. He says, "For I am already being poured out like a drink offering, and the time has come for my departure. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race." We've been talking about the race. "I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. Now there is in store for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will award to me on that day, and not only to me, but also to all who have longed for His appearing. I have fought the good fight," he says in verse 7. "I have finished the race. I have kept the faith." When we started on this journey about this race that God wants each of us that have returned to Him in trust to run, we started in the book of Hebrews, and it said in Hebrews 12:1 that we have to run this race with perseverance. And what we said is that it's a lifelong race. It is not a sprint. It is a lifelong marathon. And here is Paul, after having followed Jesus and served Jesus for 32 years. And if you want to read about some of the rigors and the sufferings that this man incurred during that 32-year ministry, go to the book of 2 Corinthians chapter 11 sometime. Pick up reading in around verse 22 or 23, and then just keep reading, and you will be shocked at what this man underwent. Nevertheless, here he is 32 years later, and he now knows. He says, "The time for my departure has come." That word departure is an interesting word there. It's not a dark word. It's not a scary word. It's a picture of a ship who's about to untie its ropes and just sail off toward its appropriate destination. He uses the same term in the book of Philippians chapter 1, verse 20-21. He says, to depart and be with Christ. It's the same word, to depart and to be with Christ, he says, is far better. And he was talking then about his life because he didn't know if he was going to be executed when he was incarcerated in Philippi. Now, here it is years later, and he knows that the time has come. But the key word, the key for you and I today, what the Spirit of God is telling you and I today, is Paul said, "I have finished the race. I have kept the faith." And now he was confident. "Therefore is laid up for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will give to me, but not only to me, but for all who have loved His appearing." Finishing the race. It's a lifelong race. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. Trust me on this one, folks. There's a lot of twists and turns. There's a lot of ups and downs. There's a lot of trials and temptations. There's a lot of challenges. There's a lot of unsuspected things. But you can, I can, and God wants us to know we can all, like the Apostle Paul, we can finish this race having kept the faith, staying faithful to God, fulfilling our God-given ministry, our God-given journey right up into the end. God wants you, God wants me, God wants us to be those that can be just as confident as Paul was at life's end, to say, I know I have finished the race that God had laid out for me. And I know, not that I deserve it, but because God is gracious, there is laid up for me, for you, faithful follower of Jesus, a crown that fades not away. Don't think in terms of some literal crown. It is the new identity that you and I will carry. We will be finally like Jesus for time and eternity. We will enter into that new ministry, that new sphere of ministry that God has been equipping and creating us for and preparing us and equipping us for throughout this life's journey. It will be a new eternal place where we will rule and reign with Christ forever and ever and ever. And that's what Paul meant about this crown that's laid up for him. Finish the race is the message that the Spirit of God is telling you and is telling me. And we need to hear that, folks. We need to hear that again and again, because there are seasons in life where you, where I, where all of us will be tempted, sorely tried to take a detour from the race, to walk into some pathway that will short circuit the intention of God for our life, for our ministry. So keep the faith, stay on the path, finish your race, finish it gloriously, finish it in a way that honors God and blesses everybody that's known you. Don't get discouraged, don't give up. Don't let anybody tell you to give up. Don't let anybody tell you you're unworthy. You finish the race, and there's laid up for you a crown of righteousness for all of us who have loved the appearing of Jesus. Keep on holding on to his love, the love that laid hold of us, because it's the secret, it's the power, it's what enables you and I to do what this man did, to say at the end, I've kept the faith and I have finished my race. Finish your race. God bless you.
I'm holding on to the love that has laid hold of me. I'm holding on to the love that has laid